I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order. Good evening, everyone. The first item on our agenda is to approve minutes of our last meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any additions or corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We are ready for our investment report, and that will be given by our county trustee, Mr. Beatty. Good evening, Mr. Beatty.
Thank you, Commissioner. We had one bid this past month. As you can tell from your packets, not near the interest we were having a couple of years ago. Had 3 institutions bid, and the best rate that we got and the rate that we accepted was 40 basis points for 1 year. And the LGIP rate dropped 2 basis points to 0.21.
Motion to approve the report.
Second.
A motion from Commissioner Jordan. That was seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Do you have anything else?
Just would remind folks that February 28th is the last day to pay without penalty for property taxes. So drawing quickly to that time. And a reminder of our tax freeze for seniors and tax relief for seniors, disabled homeowners, and disabled veterans. And you do have to reapply for that each year. And we're doing that through April the 5th. But if they haven't been in or they have questions, they can go to our website at rctrustee.com or call our office, and we'll be glad to help them with you.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes, sir.
You know where we are on collections right now, percentage-wise?
Yes, sir. We're just where we normally run, just over 55% of the tax roll at the end of January, which is is pretty traditionally where we run. So we're running right along, and then of course this will be a big month in February and the first few days of March. But collections are running pretty much where we run this time of year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Nolan, our finance director, will give the fund condition report, and she will begin with the development tax.
At the end of January, we received $516,000 in total for development tax, and for the month of January, we received $84,750. On an annualized basis, that would bring us to project to $884,000 for the year.
Okay.
No, sir, we estimated $1.1 million.
So
it's
we're
behind. We're behind.
Okay, gentlemen, let's move, please, to cash balances.
At the end of January, we had $166,632,000 with $162,956 being operating funds, $3,675,000 being borrowed funds. About 4 items on this I'd like to draw your attention to because we'll be talking about them later. We're going to be requesting some transfers within some of the capital projects. And the first one, 171, 2006 project manager, $75,000. The one below it, the ambulance station, $10,882. There's a shortage in the Kittrell training of $551. And then the county clerk, $4,005. We'll be addressing these 4 later.
Any questions or any discussion on the fund condition report? Are we ready to move to the revenue sheet?
The revenue sheet, if you'll start with me on the short page that has the general fund and the ambulance combined. I've given you some notes at the bottom on the local taxes and the general fund and ambulance. We're at 63.15% complete of our budget collected. That's all good. We've already received 100% of our pilot agreement, 100% of our trustees' prior year collections. We're at 94% of our clerk and master and 96% of our pickup taxes. At this point in the game, that's extremely good, which what I hope to tell you is that we'll have some increases in those line items that hopefully will offset some of the decreases that we have in the other revenues that might not meet our projections. The number 2 line item, that is to the fines forfeitures, there's a slight decrease compared to the other years. We had one of the courts that is a month delayed in reporting. We didn't receive that until February that we would have normally seen in January. So hopefully by the time we see this report next month, that will smooth on out. We are short in the state of Tennessee, and that is primarily due to the prisoner boarding. That's coming in less than what we estimated. Okay, and then the next page, just a few items.
I'm sorry, you mean collections on the boarding coming in from the state
Yes,
is short, or has not been paid up?
short compared to what we were this time last year.
That's because of fewer prisoners. Is that what you're saying?
I would assume.
States.
Okay, so the state hadn't changed actually or
Right.
holding any money.
Right.
All right.
Okay, under Fund 116, which we'll be talking about tonight, as far as our collections, the total other local revenues, the line item, primarily what is driving this number up so much is the sale of recyclable materials. Under the schools, just an item of note, in addition to the county taxes being more than what we were in the prior year, or what I estimated, the sales tax is at the same level as 0809. What we've received to date, we're back to the level of 0809. Okay, and then debt service, that is out of whack because of all the refundings that we have not adjusted amendments for. That's why this one looks so out of range. But we'll take care of this one tonight.
Any discussion or questions for Mrs. Nolan?
Motion to approve.
Report.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Nolan. The next item on our agenda is our annual report of fixed assets, and you will find a beautiful booklet at your place with this beautiful picture of the courthouse and the beautiful fall scene there. And this is Mr. Ted Lindsay, who is our fixed assets coordinator, and he'll just briefly give us the quick summary of the booklet, and then you have this to take with you, of course. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm here to present the Fixed Assets Annual Report. This report helps you understand how we as Inventory Control serve Rutherford County in its efforts to maintain accurate and dependable capital asset records, and enhances the accountability of how tax dollars have been spent. Basically, we tag inventory periodically. We surplus and sell capital assets and controllable assets in the county and schools, the county general departments, and the highway department. We also report that in the comprehensive annual financial report published every year. The difference in the capital assets and controllable assets, or the capital assets are items that are over $5,000 that do go on that annual report. Controllable assets are those that you guys have decided what those thresholds are and have instructed our department what to tag. Some of those items are for home electronics, iPods, or those sort of things, or in some of the classrooms, some Interwrite pads, laptops, computers, and those sort of things. But just briefly, let me go over some of the financial schedules. If you'll just turn to page 5, and you'll see also on 6 and 7 what we have for the balance of in July 1st, 2009 for each of the categories: land, right-of-way, construction in progress, building improvements, infrastructure, intangible assets. All those are there. You'll see at the very bottom the accumulated depreciation for each of those, and the increases, decreases, prior period changes, and that'll give us the balance for June 30th. At the very bottom, that gives us the net amount after depreciation is taken off. So for County General, it is $261 million. Next page for schools, the same format there, with some increases and decreases from the new buildings from Whitworth Buchanan, Oakland Middle, and some other improvements. The balance there at the very bottom, $411 million. Adding those two values gives us $672 million. When you add on the depreciation and get the historical cost, the total we paid for all these items was $850 million. But our net amount is $672 million. On page 7, the changes in function activity, just give that, all those by the function, by general administration, finance, public safety, and each of those. And you can see those amounts add up there on the far right. For primary government, $341 million. For schools, $509 million. On the next few pages, 8 and 9, you'll see the pie charts and basically what that looks like. On page 11, the inventory review results for the year are there. One correction there on the school side on the left. You'll see Election Commission, that should be on the right there, County General. But overall, we did 31 inventories of schools and 28 for County General, for a total of 59 inventories. Of those, for schools, 8 of those were 100%. For County General, 27 were 100%. The average for the schools, for the percentages of for assets was 98, 99%. For County General, it was 99 as well. And to highlight just a few that were kind of down, as you'll see, Cedar Grove at 93.1%, Homer Pittard at 96.2%, Rockville Elementary 97.2%, Stewartsboro 96.9%, Walter Hill 95.2%, and County Maintenance 97.7%. And in looking at what happened throughout the year, each of these struggled kind of with a similar issue, and that's accounting for TVs, computers, digital cameras, and video cameras. Each of these. And as you'll see with the missing items, those as well were the ones that kept coming up. And to distinguish again, as you guys know, the difference in remaining and missing is when we inventory a school or department, after one time going in, getting all the rooms and turning that over to staff and then turning it back, whatever we all found came off, and we designated that. Whatever we couldn't find after just one time for an inventory was designated as remaining. After 2 inventories, if it wasn't seen, it would be missing at that point, and that's very important. We do that because sometimes we'll find things on the back end. After the second time around, oh yeah, it showed up in a closet, or it appeared. A lot of times that'll happen. Sometimes we'll even have missing assets that'll come back and we'll status change those as active. So it's just a way so that we're not constantly back and forth. So that's why we designate that. But those missing assets for this fiscal year are on page 13. And we have a total of 28 that are missing. And you can see each of those, what school, what the item is, the purchase price or historical cost, the depreciated value there, and then the summary totals for each school there at the bottom. But in total, $19,525 missing, but when you look at the depreciated value, or what we kind of call what's left for the usage of this item, is only $662. You'll see on page 14 kind of a chart of the last 4 or 5 years, and we've gone down 3 years in a row in terms of that dollar value for missing items. That's really, really good. And in the back, you'll see the appendix, which will give us policies and procedures, kind of let you know kind of what those administrative policies are for everybody involved, and then also the accounts to be tagged and those thresholds that I was talking about are there on page 19.
2 questions. Number 1, on the school system. Next year, the ones that aren't on this year will be on it?
Yes.
Will be inventoried for sure, and some of the ones that are on it will get hit again next year?
Yes.
Okay. When is it that you decide that something should be pulled off? I think we've discussed this before, but that was a year ago. But, I mean, you see some of these items on here are back in the 90s. And I don't know. You know, one of them's a PC. A couple of them are.
Right.
But obviously, they aren't worth the value that you have on them right now, so why aren't they?
Well, that lists the date that they were purchased, the date we first put them on. So those have been in the system. For all these, they're schools, but that's when they were put in and started using. So some of them, yeah, made it 10, 11, 12 years. And then finally, they just couldn't be seen. So some of that, we've talked about this in years past, have been just a surplus issue. It's a paperwork issue. It just wasn't documented properly, and they got taken up and tossed. And a lot of these, since the depreciated value is totally gone, you know, we're thinking that's what happened. But because we require that proper documentation, we had to keep those on there. That's what I imagine most of these were. The digital cameras, a lot of those have those little floppy disks that you put them in for those old Mavicas. And right now they're just obsolete. I mean, you've got the flip phones, well, the flip video phones that are going on, the cameras there. You got a lot of folks just bringing cameras from home and using those. I mean, these are just so old, and computers now don't even have those little floppy disks. They're USB. So that's what a lot of these items are.
Well, so my question is why are we still carrying some of those then like that? They're obsolete.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I could answer that. Once we tag them, we'll keep looking for them until they surplus and retire them. So it's the school's discretion.
When I die, you can bury one with me, and then we won't have to worry about it.
we have plenty of them to do that.
Well, out of this whole report, and literally thousands of items of inventory within the county, there are only 28 items unaccounted for, and out of those 28, if I'm looking correctly, all but 4 of those are 10 years old or older. And like Commissioner Schaefer said, a PC from 1993 is fairly outdated, you know, and there's one of those on this list. So I want to commend all the county employees and your staff because these numbers are going down, and out of literally probably the opportunity for probably 10,000 items here between the schools you checked or more, and there's only 28 missing, and these haven't, as we've said in the past, more than likely haven't just walked away. They're just something that broke and got pitched in the garbage and didn't get taken out of inventory correctly through an oversight by somebody. And so I think that's a pretty tremendous number, coming with 28 items out of the whole county that are not accounted for.
Out of about 37,000 items that we tagged.
37,000.
It's about rough.
We didn't check all the schools this year, but out of the ones this year, you checked over 10,000 for sure. I just like to say good job to you and the county employees out there. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve this report.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner P. Commissioner P. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. We are ready for our insurance report. Mrs. Stinson, our insurance director.
I've previously provided you with the fund report of 264 and 266. We'll go over 264 first. The January report had a per employee per month cost of $670.28 compared to $696.44 for prior year. Including care here costs, January per employee per month is at $702.39 compared to the prior year of $738. Average overall year-to-date medical, dental, and vision benefits is $660.28 per employee per month, compared to $697.74 for prior year. On an aggregate per employee per month basis, the average year-to-date is $687.88. That's compared to $730.22 for prior year, representing a demonstrated trend of 5.8% below prior year. I had been requested at the last meeting to add back on the GASB information, which I've done for the report that's in front of you. In speaking with Ms. Nolan, we are going to report on a OPEB obligation basis. And if you will see on the bottom of that sheet, it will show you that currently the net OPEB obligation is in excess of $37 million for the county, and that's represented by $6.7 million on the county general and almost $31 million for the schools. Are there any questions about this report?
Gentlemen, any questions or comments?
Okay. We'll go over the Fund 266 report now. In regards to the OJI program, the year-to-date cost totaled in excess of $500,000, representing 86% of last year's cost. Currently, we have 22 open workers' comp claims. We were able to settle one of those claims in January. We had an aggregate cost of legal expenses of roughly $14,000 in January, and we had one large claim that exceeded $12,000, which brought us to $87,532 in expenses under OJI for January. Are there any questions?
Make a motion to approve the report.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner P. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Do you have anything else?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, if you will turn to Section 3 in your notebooks, we will begin with the general fund budget amendments. And our first budget amendment is a request from the county clerk, Mrs. Crowell. I do not see her here. Will you explain what she's asking for, Mrs. Nolan?
Yes, ma'am. This is a request to transfer some funds within her budget, $388 for data processing equipment, and asking to decrease her uniform line item by $247 and communications equipment by $141.
And Mrs. Nolan, because of that amount, some of the budget members may be curious as to why this has to come before us. Would
Yes,
you
if the question, these numbers are less than $1,000, so why are they in front of you? The line item data processing equipment has already been amended by $2,500, and the policy is that whenever a line item is changed by more than $1,000, it's to come before you.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin, Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. From the Sheriff's Department, Mr. Russell. And for the benefit of the Budget Committee, and also especially the Public Safety Committee, this looks somewhat different than what was presented in Public Safety, but the Finance Director worked with Mr. Russell and also Sheriff Arnold, and this is the way they felt that it should be presented. So who is our representative on Public Safety? Okay. Commissioner P., it may look a little bit different than what you saw in your committee. Mr. Russell.
Okay. On the sheriff's side of the budget, we've been doing pretty good with our overtime, so we're going to move some of those funds to take care of some additional issues we've got where we have shortages in our other accounts. So we're pulling $142,570 from the overtime account, and then the Social Security Retirement, Employer Medicare, and we're going to, those are the ratios that go along with it. As you pay a person every dollar, you've got to have percentages, so all those match up. We're going to move all those funds over. Where we're going to put the money is we're going to train, we're going to send 10 additional officers to in-service training. That runs $2,500 an officer, to get them certified. So we're wanting to train 10 more officers to get them certified. The office supplies account, we're going to beef back up by about $10,000. We've had to reprint a whole lot of new letterhead and everything else with the change over the name, so those accounts are running a little deficient. Uniforms, we're switching over our uniforms from just straight polyester to a poly cotton. A little bit more comfortable, but also if they have to run into a burning car or whatever, then they're able to accommodate for that. The material's not going to melt into their skin, which is kind of a hazard. So they wanted to switch to that. So as a policy, we've changed over to that now. Those are a little bit more expensive, so we're going to beef up that account a little bit. The other supplies account, the $499, I'll admit, when we got there, just about every chair in the place was old, beat up, and dilapidated. So I'm sure some of you guys saw when you came to the conference room, I bought some new conference chairs and stuff like that. So when we pulled funds out of that account, that's where we're replacing those funds back. So, and then the $9,000 that you see for the new vehicles, we have a surveillance van and we have all the equipment, but we don't have the equipment in the surveillance van. And so it's going to cost about $9,000 to Gemini to put all the equipment in the surveillance van. And so that's where we're going to put some funds there for that. And then, of course, everybody knows about the maintenance and repair to the jail, and we're going to put $75 into that account to continue with all the repairs. And sometime pretty soon, we're also going to have another night where everybody can come back out again and see all the repairs. We've completed a lot of repairs, and we've done some remodeling, especially the visitation area has been completely remodeled over there. You'd be probably interested to see that. We've added some additional office space and things like that to help out with that. We're going to add $10,000 to extradition. At this time of the year, it usually that account can usually start to be depleted. We've been told we may have to go to Alaska and pick somebody up here pretty soon, so there's some expensive trips that may come up. We don't know if it'll be this budget year or not, but we're going to put the funds back in there. The prisoner's clothing account was starting to be a little deficient, so we're going to add some funds back in that. And then the other $499 account on the jail side is adding some funds back in there for office supplies as well. And that's it for that page. We go on the second page.
Continue
Okay.
on the next page.
All right. The next page, we're going to pull salary money out of 189 on the Sheriff's Department side. And then, of course, you've got the related accounts again, proper ratios. And then we're going to go down, we're going to add those funds back in to the jail side for detention officers. And then when you get down to the maintenance personnel, we're pulling $4,000, and the longevity pay, we're going to put that into overtime. We feel like the overtime budget for the jail side as a percentage compared to the law enforcement side is, those ratios are kind of off, and I feel like that before the year's out, we're going to run out of funds there, so we're going to go ahead and at least add $5,000 to it. So, and that's, any questions?
What's the salary and wages on the jail side right there, the increase there for?
On second page, 37,000.
Yes.
That's for additional officers we're gonna have back there in the jail, because we're running short. We're running short of labor dollars.
Primarily the paying out of leave when a officer leaves, and they've paid out and they've brought some other folks back before that leave was out, and so it was going to be short. But we knew at some point that we would make this adjustment to cover. I mean, there was funds in the sheriff's side to cover the jail side, so this is truing it up.
Okay.
Aren't there some that are getting upgrades because of what they're doing?
That's not included in here.
That's not in this
part.
Yeah, we tabled that for another time.
I'd like to ask just another question on the extradition.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be enough to cover it, you think?
As long as we don't have to go to England.
Okay.
There's another trip that may come up, but I don't think they've picked those guys up overseas just yet, and so that may end up being into the next budget year. We may be okay. So we're just kind of playing it by ear. We really don't know. So depends on what the DA wants to do.
Let me explain one thing. I appreciate you pulling out within the budget. One of my pet peeves in budgetary process is the overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be your first budget, and the overtime line item is one that I really am a stickler on, and I'm proud we can pull out $142,000 there, but that means overtime was way over budgeted. So be prepared during budget time to whittle this and get it down to, I know when we do have overtime, we've got to pay it. And
Right.
of course, we want to keep our community safe, no
Right.
doubt. But
Yes, sir.
so this leaves, if this is correct here, and Lisa, usually there's a little bit of difference there, but about 289,000, is that what it looks like left in that line item, or is that just for that one side?
That's what's been spent
That's what's been spent.
as of January 11th.
Okay, so what's our balance then at that point? Do we know what the balance is on that line item?
Today,
Yeah, okay. Can you give me that later?
No,
Thank you.
we have been cutting down on overtime quite a bit with, we revamped schedules, did shift bids, and of course, then just also said no overtime. You know, we've just avoided it any way we could. Mainly, the big push was just so that we could get some of these jail renovations done. That way we'd have the funds to do that. That's kind of been our big push, so that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve both sets of the Sheriff's Department budget amendments.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer, and that's a second from Commissioner Sandlin. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mr. Russell, thank you.
Thank you.
From Pet Adoption and Welfare Services, Mrs. Nolan.
this is a request to move $7,385 from other salaries and wages to the county official. This is the director spot, to be able to have funds sufficient to pay out the prior director's accumulated leave.
Move to approve the amendment.
Commissioner Sandlin, no, that was Commissioner Schaefer, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Any further discussion relative to this motion?
How are we coming along on the search for the new director? How are we coming along on the search for a new director there?
We have acquired a new director, and that person will be starting February 22nd. That's the reason we had to go ahead and make this a budget amendment.
I didn't recall seeing that in public safety. That's one reason I was asking too.
See, I'm not sure we had that done in public safety, and I don't think we hired him until after that meeting.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Information technology. Good evening.
Commissioners, tonight we bring sort of a joint recommendation by the Finance Department and Office of Information Technology, and really even the Sheriff's Office, to request that we add 300 additional licensees to our pool of licenses available to allow electronic timekeeping by primarily the Sheriff's Office. This pilot project, the pilot part of this project really started about 2 years ago, and I say truly a joint effort because the Finance Department and the Technology Office sort of subjected ourselves to be the guinea pigs for ensuring that the electronic timekeeping was consistent with certainly all of the audit parameters that rigors that we are under with the State Comptroller's Office, and also that we could achieve integration or easy importation of the time punches into our financial system, our payroll system, thereby eliminating some double entry and certainly eliminating some paperwork and so forth. And the test portion of that took almost really about a year to get everything completely ironed out to the point that we were comfortable implementing this in other departments. And as the amendment says, we have now implemented that in the mayor's office and the HR department and insurance and drug court and planning and engineering and building codes and in OIT. And finance obviously handles the payroll end of things, and IT gets the equipment installed and deals with time clocks. In this case, there will actually be some equipment on location at the sheriff's office because not all of these not all of the Sheriff's Office employees have computers from which to punch their time. There are various ways that the time can be punched. So time clocks is one of those, and so that will assist with that. Mr. Russell, I believe, is the primary point person at the Sheriff's Office who would be responsible for this type of administrative initiative, and certainly is supportive, I think, of this, and even sent me a couple of points about the cost savings and time savings and elimination of redundancy and elimination of errors that can occur and so forth and so on. From a manager's standpoint, it makes it much easier to tell when leave requests have been requested and when they've been granted or not, so that you don't accidentally tell two people they can be off at the same time when their job responsibilities are overlap or do not overlap, things like that. So really it gets us off of spreadsheets. Various spreadsheets are floating around the county, various means by which people have taken it upon themselves to try to track their time as best that they could without an actual timekeeping system. This timekeeping system brings that all into one contiguous format and allows us to have continuity across departments as we continue to implement this. Ms. Nolan, anything else?
Where it helps us, my department, of course, is doing the payroll, and it's always frustrating to get those timesheets in, to get them approved and get them into our office so we can key them in and have our employees paid. With this system, we have access to all timesheets at all times. So even when maybe the employee may have forgotten to turn their time clocks in, but they have clocked in, we know their time, we can still pay them. The way the system works, all the entries, it's several levels. The employee can put their time in, as Brian said, that they can request the time. The department heads have the screens. They can approve the time. Then by the push of a button, the entries are into our database, into our accounting system. And when life works great, those checks are beautifully cut and the employees are paid. I highly recommend this. We've been on it, as we said, since 2006. We would love for the whole entire county to be on it. Long-term goal, we've spoken with the schools. We would love for the schools to be on it. We would love for everybody to be on it. But we've taken this bite size at a time, and what we have found is that not all departments are the same. We chose not to just buy a package, roll it out to the county, and have it fail. We are taking this department by department and customizing department by department.
I got a couple questions either for Lisa or Brian. It says 300 new users, so we've already explained that just a little bit.
Go ahead.
I believe we currently have 200 users that we have purchased licenses for that cover the departments that are already in place. So this raises up to 500 total users that can be on the system.
Okay, and then if you add juvenile detention and workhouse, then we're talking, and I guess that's it, juvenile and workhouse, then you're planning on, so.
We're about halfway, you might say, and the sheriff's office will be another large chunk.
Okay, so is this like 30,000 per year that we pay, or once the system we have it, we have it, but is there an additional cost that on a yearly basis per users?
No, sir. The recurring cost is I don't have the number here, but it's in the neighborhood of 8 or 10% of the total cost recurring, which is actually fairly good. We sometimes see recurring maintenance cost on software upwards of 15, 20, 25% of the original cost you can plan to pay every single year thereafter. This is actually pretty low. It's in the 8 to 10% range, and we include all updates and maintenance, and support calls that we might have to place or Lisa might have to place to Gory Reagan, the company that's doing this.
So you're thinking budgetary time, then there's going to be another 30,000 to try to get the rest of the folks up, or somewhere in that range then?
Our concept was to not ask for more now than we can do between now and June 30th, and so we would, in working with the mayor, we would determine how many more Lisa and I feel that we can do the next fiscal year, and probably ask for some portion of the remainder of that, if not the entire amount, probably another couple hundred, I would think, if we're far enough into it at that point to justify.
Probably a stupid question, but why so many users? I mean, as far as the software application, you're not having to.
Every employee is a user.
So every employee that punches a time clock, we have to pay a user fee. Okay, that's what I was wondering, because, you know, if it was a software system where, say, you controlled this time clock for your department, that's what I was envisioning. Okay.
Their pricing model is per puncher, per person that punches.
It also helps with our fair labor standards, that we are having actual times instead of estimated times is what we've been using on our paper timesheets.
Yeah, I can see some definite advantages to this, you know, especially where we're looking at the Sheriff's Department on overtime. You know, we'll know exactly what we've got going there, so that may help us.
The really cool part on the sheriff's side of what we've, Bedford, Shelby County, Shelbyville has a system. They have had it in place. What's really neat, I think, about the system is that there's a dashboard sort of set up, and so you've got that, say, a lieutenant at the sheriff's department. His people are assigned to him. He can go in and open up this dashboard and see who have clocked in, who's there and who's not, who's late.
Who didn't arrive for a shift?
Who didn't arrive for the shift?
Right.
You know, do you have something not covered?
Big Brother is well on his
Well,
mark,
and the other flip side, to be honest, it is requiring department heads to manage their people.
That's exactly right. A level of rigor applied to that management as far as the time element of it, even by a conscientious department head, that just hasn't been able to be possible. You can't look at a shift and see who showed up and who didn't when everybody's filling out a spreadsheet on Excel.
Especially when they're, for your department, they're on 2 floors.
Yeah, and at the sheriff's office, it'll be multiplied even beyond that.
Oh, yeah.
We've done it very cheaply in the fact that we have not bought any hardware. Or did we buy a server?
Not an ounce of hardware yet, I don't believe. No.
So it's just been installed on people's computers, and they start clicking away.
Well, it says here that you're buying time clocks, so
we will in this, yes.
In this, because coming into this environment with the sheriff's department, they don't all have computers, so we envision maybe a swoop it card system.
It'll be the first department where we may have 50 people arriving at work in the space of a 3-minute, 10-minute period, entering the squad room for so forth and so on. Everyone else is trickle in, trickle out, 10, 15 at a time.
They have the peripheral where you can swoop it, you can put your hand on it. I don't think it's an eye thing, but they'll do a hand.
Various input methods.
Some people could do it, very limited people able to do it from their cell phone, create their punches.
And there are some unique, although that might sound worrisome, there are some unique circumstances where that's especially applicable to certain employees, and it can be selected per employee as to who can do the cellular punch or not. But for instance, a detective that gets called out at 2 o'clock in the morning, it certainly would not be reasonable to expect that he would go to the sheriff's office to clock in before he went to a homicide, for instance. So he would be able to punch that clock at that time. I've used it a couple of times when I have a morning meeting that is not here at the courthouse, and I go straight to the Chamber of Commerce or somewhere for a 7:30 meeting. I punch in when I pull in the driveway. It shows that I punched in, and Mr. Burgess even can see that I'm on the clock somewhere.
This system also has a really good audit, because if an employee fails to punch, and I enter the punch, the employee cannot enter their punch. They'll have to come say, I missed the punch, or I can view that they missed the punch. And I can go in and put their punch in, and it time stamps it, and it says who did it. It will say, Lisa Nolan adjusted the time. Also has the time punch when the employee approves the timesheet and when the manager approves the timesheet. We like this system. Can you tell?
What is the will of the committee?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner P., seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Any discussion or further questions for Mrs. Nolan or Mr. Robertson?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Schaefer?
How much will this wind up when it's all implemented, costing us per year?
Well,
What do you think we've spent so far?
there's 30,000 here for 300. So you figure that times about 3, depending on how the equipment works out. So
Well,
I think,
estimate 1,000.
yeah, so 1,000 employees. So you know, so
100,000.
yes.
You said per year, though, didn't you?
Oh,
Yeah, that's,
Oh,
you're talking about setup
eight
costs,
or-
he's talking about per year.
8 or 10% of that. So just really just a
8 or 9.
yeah.
And realistically, if your office is able to do this more efficiently and easily, this could push off a need for another employee as the county grows at some part in the counties. This is a labor-saving device. And besides the fact of more management abilities, is that not
Well,
also true?
what it will help is that our person that does payroll on payroll week is staying until 8 o'clock at night. You know, so.
It'll save overtime on
Save
that person.
overtime. And it will be more, you know, I feel like it'll be more accurate.
Mr.
Any
Russell
further
mentioned-
discussion?
Mr. Russell mentioned HR time savings as well.
Any further discussion relative to this motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you. Gentlemen, if you will look at the next budget amendment, this is from Legal Services, and this is a request to provide sufficient funds to pay outside legal services and legal services for the county attorney that are above the contracted amount, and that is $100,000 from unassigned fund balance. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Jordan.
I don't believe we have any choice but to pay our legal bills.
Madam Chairman, I just wanted to ask a question on that.
Surely. Commissioner Sandlin?
What it's going to, what case is this, or what it's going to, or is this to?
It's a compilation of several cases. You know, you've got the mosque issue, you've got planning issues, dog issues.
So it's just all grouped together?
And we've tried to separate the difference between the county attorney for those services that are over the 6,000 amount that we had in the retainer, and then the other one, the 58,900, 331. Those are the ones that are would be maybe other people in his office that are or outside legal services.
We had asked, Mayor, on recouping, or asked our attorneys to recoup on a couple of lawsuits that we had won, that we had expended some money out there. This isn't going to any of those, hopefully.
Well, you've asked, and we're going to give you a recommendation regarding one of those particular suits, and we'll have to do that in an executive session to apprise you of what we think we should do and what we are doing, okay?
Okay. But
we haven't spent any real money doing that yet, all right? That's not part of this.
Are we going to do that next week, or is that be later on in another time frame? Executive session?
We weren't planning on doing it next week, but I can revisit that with the commission and with the attorney in that respect.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Employee insurance, we'll deal first with the general fund. Mrs. Nolan?
This is our yearly true-up on the employee insurance, the match that the county provides for the employees. There wasn't as many departments that need adjusting. we are only needing $28,145 from our pooled amount, and this $58,600,205 is that pool that we budget a certain amount of money in to offset any changes that we may have to make during the year. We're just not sure where they'll rise. But we'll need $5,660 for the county buildings, $7,580 for property assessor, $3,750 for OIT, $700 for drug court, $6,070 for the district attorney, $145 for the health department, and $4,240 for the sheriff's department. Total of $28,145.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Commissioner Sandlin, thank you, and seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. And now for the Drug Control Fund.
Same thing as the other one, but it is with the drug fund, $12,210 from the assigned for public safety to the employee insurance, $12,210.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Okay. Staying in Section 3 of our notebooks, gentlemen, the ambulance service fund budget amendments, and we have two items.
This first one, the ambulance service received $20,000 from the Emergency Communication District for use in their in-service training. The funds were used to pay for the classes and to pay for overtime while the personnel attended these classes. They're requesting $11,000 for in-service training and then $8,330 for part-time personnel and the related benefits.
So moved.
Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
Okay, the second one, the ambulance service has changed. They are going to a third-party billing contractor that will bill for all their services. There's an estimate that far exceeds what we think that they'll have to pay, that they think that they will provide the county in additional revenue. And there is a performance measure for them to meet. They must exceed this. So this estimate is to increase $100,000 for patient revenues and provide appropriations for other contracted services of $100,000.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner P.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan.
We looked at this in public safety, and, they basically had a guarantee of a certain amount level money that will come in, so this is going to be a win for us. Something else I wanted to mention, a lot of the numbers that we're throwing out here, just so the people sitting here looking me in the face saying, where are they spending all this money and where is that coming from? Most of this is transfers within these people's budgets, so we're not spending new money here, so just wanted to reassure people of that.
That's true. And when I looked at this account, the patient revenue, I would already at this point increase my estimate of what we've done to date. So I would expect that we'll come in later and adjust this revenue again.
The contracted services part there, am I looking at that correct? It's like a 5% that we're going to be bringing back on top of the billing that they're going to be doing for us then, so it's a...
Well, we have to pay them 5% of the revenue that we receive. Not that was billed, but what we actually receive.
Okay, that's the key. What we receive is 5% that we pay them.
Right.
Not
what they billed.
Okay. And then what's their responsibility as far as in collecting that, or is that back on us? I mean, are they going to proceed in collections of that?
They will collect and the mayor may be able to explain it better than I can.
I mean, I'm for it. I'm
They're
just,
responsible and are committed contractually to capture at least a minimum of 5% more than we've been collecting historically. So we should get an excess or a surplus beyond what we pay them.
So up until this point, we've been billing ourselves.
Yes, we have, and we've had,
How did we come into, it sounds like a good idea to me, but how did we come into contact with this company? Did we put this out for bid? Because this is significant dollars. But
yes, we did. We took requests for proposals and bids, and it's been working through this for a year or more. So they've just really actually got started within the last month or so, actually doing the work.
Back to what Commissioner P said, we're going to net more money than we're getting now, and it's also probably going to free up some man hours of our own
Yes,
people
very
doing
much
this
so.
type of work.
We've been overworked and understaffed, and the receivables and the uncollectibles have been growing beyond our capacity to handle that.
Madam Chairman, I believe from Public Safety, I believe we were told that Marion County has been using this for a while, this service. And not only, they're much smaller than we are, of course, but they are extremely happy with the results they have received from there.
Okay, gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Do we need any further discussion relative to this motion?
One question Steve had asked me is, the ambulance service spends a lot of time following up on this billing. That's going to free up some of their time to do some of these other things that we're paying them overtime for. So that's the other side of the coin there. That's helping us, kind of two ways.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Jordan? Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Solid Waste Sanitation Fund Budget Amendment. Gentlemen, turn please to Section 4 in your notebook. Mr. Nolan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're here tonight to request to move some money. They are a recyclable budget. We projected would take in $75,000 for this year. As you can see, already this year we've taken in $174,000 plus. So what we're wanting to do is recognize some of that revenue and move it into the line item where we can buy another roll-off truck with it. The cost of the roll-off truck is $132,778.
I make a motion to approve. Director come forward. We got several trucks, really bad shape, and for several years.
I'll second it, and I'll commend Mr. Nolan. He's the first person been up there I can hear clearly tonight. So.
That's your age, too many birthdays.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Nolan?
I'd like to commend the people sitting in this room, especially the students here. We budget a certain amount of money every year for recyclables, and Rutherford County's recyclables have risen phenomenally. We've actually had to budget a lot more money just to haul the recyclables off, and it's the newer generation of our children and our young people here that are driving that. And I wanted to commend you because we've got to do something about taking care of our trash. Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Gentlemen, turn to Section 5 in your notebooks. We have a Highway Fund Budget Amendment. Mrs. Nolan. Yeah, this is the amendment to comply with the maintenance of effort and dealing with the mineral severance tax.
Yes, this, I needed to adjust the budget for the Highway Department because the state did not like the way that I presented some information to them, and that's the maintenance of effort, sorry, the way we report maintenance of effort. This recommendation is to adjust the mineral severance tax by $330,000 from assigned for Public Works. The way I had reported it initially, And if you go to that second page, I had presented that we would use fund balance that resulted from the property tax that we have into this fund. You already know that the property tax that goes in this fund is designated for the easements, the public works section. And since the maintenance of effort to me was on the highway department part of it, I thought we could just use that for to ensure that we did maintain our effort. I was called back and said we really don't need to show it that way, that I needed to show it in the mineral severance, and I needed to adjust the budget.
So this is just a bookkeeping change?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Discussion?
What local revenues go into the road department's budget?
All these that you've got listed.
Okay.
Property tax, the interest and penalty, business tax, hotel motel. We don't have any hotel motel.
Well,
the mineral
property-
severance, sales tax, wheel tax.
Well, we've already said the property tax is just on the right-of-ways where we're basically infancy
Right.
public works. So
But
that's-
even though
It's still part of
that
this
it's,
budget.
and what's interesting is that, what I find interesting is that you can look and see which lines have gone down in the past, and you know, it gives you a 5-year history of that mineral severance. We had, at one time in 06-07, it received almost $700,000 in that, and last year we only received $231,000. The other local taxes and revenue, that's primarily interest. Of course, you know how that's done for us over the years.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin? Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Okay, we have several items now from the schools. Director Gill, are you or Mr. Sandvig doing the amendments? Mr. Sandvig, we will begin with the petty cash request, and we'll need to take that as a separate vote.
All right. We are requesting that the petty cash at the Rutherford County Teacher Center, at the central office, and the one in Smyrna be increased from $50 to $100 per secretary for a total of $300. These staff members are currently the petty cash custodians. They handle the receipting and replenishing of the money in accordance with all the county guidelines. Our requested motion is to approve petty cash on hand amounts at the Rutherford County Teacher Centers to be increased from $50 per secretary to $100 per secretary for a total petty cash on hand amount of $300.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Staying in Section 6, gentlemen, we have 2 general-purpose school fund budget amendments, and then we need to stop and take that as a vote.
The first amendment deals with revenues. Part 1 budgets $36,987 in account 43,990, other charges for services, and the related clerical and custodial pay and benefits for campus school. MTSU is paying most of the cost of these 2 positions. Last year they were MTSU positions. The second part increases account 46,511 basic education program by $1,218,290 and decreases account 46,512 BEP ERA by the same amount. The state has reallocated its ERA funds that were used to fund part of the basic education program. No impact on our total BEP funds. The next part is amending in $199,900 to account 47,590, other federal through state, for materials and supplies for children whose family are eligible for free or reduced meals. And the final part of this amendment, I believe, yes, is each year we get an allocation that helps pay part of the cost of the system's high-cost special education students. I budget an amount in, without knowing the amount each year, in the general purpose school budget. Any increase over that amount has to be budgeted for those children. So this year we have $60,081 additional to be budgeted, and the revenue is split between $47,143, education of handicapped IDEA, and $47,145 special ed preschool grants, and it goes into the related special education expenditures. Do you want me to read the whole motion, Madam Chairman? Or try to abbreviate it?
I think you can. I think you can abbreviate.
All
yes.
right. Our recommended motion is to amend the revenues I've just gone over in detail and the related expenditures as presented.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Well, we need to add that second one to the same motion.
All right. And the second amendment is a GPS budget amendment for the 2% bonus. The 2% bonuses for administrative and system-wide staff need to be funded from the general purpose school fund and not the education jobs grant the system received. This grant is through the state via the federal government, and it has to be used for positions in our schools. The amendment we're presenting here covers system-wide and administrative folks who are not covered by that. This bonus was negotiated with the REA, and the board, as they have been doing in recent years, wanted to do the same for the classified staff. $85,673 is needed for the certified staff, $116,687 for classified staff in these positions. The related benefits total $18,531, and the amendment reallocates to a total of $220,891 in already budgeted certified and classified salaries, and the related benefits moves them around within labor lines in order to fund this portion of the bonus. The balance of it will flow through the federal project. Our recommended motion is to amend $220,891 in already budgeted certified and classified salaries and the related benefits to the appropriate lines in order to fund this 2% bonus approved by the board and REA for administrative and system-wide staff as presented.
Okay, and we can take both of those together in one motion. Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner P. Any questions or comments for Mr. Sandvig? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin? Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Mr. Sandvig, the Education Capital Projects Fund 177 budget amendment.
Each year, because of the way we handle this fund, because it's covered by property tax, we have to do an amendment to fund again the previous year's projects that we didn't have complete at June 30. We don't carry forward the purchase orders in this fund. So the following 2009-2010 projects are included in this carryover amendment. For the McFadden renovation, we're moving $1,020 to architect's fees, $3,044 maintenance and repair. For roof repair replacement, Riverdale Annex, $3,835. The Riverdale Band section, $26,682. The Christiana Hallway, $280. In HVAC replacement at Laverne High, $337,289. Oakland High, $127,500. Did I say Oakland?
And Riverdale.
And Riverdale, the same amount.
Mhm.
Holloway High School for window replacement, $170,000. Total funds that we are taking out of fund balance, because these projects weren't complete, $797,150. And this is the routine amendment we've been doing since we carved out this fund. The rest of the amendment reallocates $60,000 of already budgeted contract services to the line items that best fit the description. No new funds are being used. Do you want me to?
No,
do
I
that?
think you've listed all of those,
right.
and you have those two totals, gentlemen.
And our recommended motion is to amend $797,150 from fund balance for prior year projects and to amend $68,000 from contract services to other line items as presented.
And this motion will be Fund 177, the capital projects budget amendment, gentlemen.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin. Commissioner Jordan, second. Okay.
I did have a question, though. Lisa, what was the, or Jeff, what was the allocated amount there? I'm sure there's probably a little difference or a little savings, hopefully, in there.
Typically, you see a little savings.
If you got it handy, but if you don't, I can get it later.
I do not have that, Commissioner, but I can have that for you next week.
Okay.
I'm thinking we had some.
Pick up your microphone.
I see her. Thank you.
In the very back of your budget book, where the audit is, the budget, look on page 99. And we provide for you the 09, 10 items that were budgeted out of this fund and in the current year. So what he's saying is some of these projects didn't get taken care of during the fiscal year 9-10 and rolling it into the 10-11 fiscal year.
It's still maintained in that same category. That's not that's not really ending fund balance then, is it?
Well, if it rolls, if it's not spent in 9-10, it rolls into fund balance. And so what this amendment does is to bring it back out and use it for what was approved in 9-10.
In last year's budget.
100% of this is projects we started last year, we didn't get through, and we're just putting the money right back where it's supposed to be due to end of year.
That, or maybe the project didn't get started.
Yeah, but it was
It was
approved last
it was
year.
an approved project, so
So
we're
these
just
aren't
bringing
new
it back
projects.
out.
This is stuff we
They're
approved
same
last
project.
year.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sandlin. Director Gill, we are ready for your comments, please. And if you want to come to the podium, that we may be able to hear you better. I hope this microphone is working maybe a little stronger than the one at the desk. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. Mr. Clardy has some information to pass out that will correlate with what I want to speak to. First off, we're not asking for any kind of approval, but I do want you to look at our 5-year plan just quickly. And I'm going to recommend shortly slight modification in that plan. But it indicates projects that we'll do next year. Most of those projects will come from the capital project repair fund that we have. If you recall, we dedicated 5 cents from the BEP money a couple of years ago towards repair work, and that 5 cents is the equivalent of $2 million. So we're going to work on campus school renovation, McFadden renovation, and other major capital repairs, maintenance projects to the tune of $1.6 million. Just disregard Laverne High, Smyrna High bleachers at this time. Following year, we'll do a renovation at David Urey and also other major capital repairs across the system to the tune of $2.3 million. It is our goal in 2013 to open Stewart's Creek High School at a cost of $49,976,500. Also, when the board passed the 5-year plan a few months back, Eagleville High School addition Phase 1 to the tune of $5.3 million was scheduled to open in August 2013. Smyrna primary renovation, $750,000, and major capital repairs, $1.5 million. Now, in connection with that, obviously, there'll be a considerable amount of borrowed money for Stewart's Creek and at some point Eagleville. And down the road, I hate to go that far out because it's virtually impossible in this system to project where growth will be. But we're thinking now that probably in the year 2014, Laverne or Smyrna will need an elementary school. We hope to complete the next phase at Eagleville, Phase 2 Eagleville addition. There's additional capital repair money. And in 2015, it's highly likely that we'll need a elementary west of Murfreesboro, another Smyrna area middle school, and perhaps do the Siegel High addition. And those numbers are projected out to the right of in one of those columns. Of course, as the mayor said at the last meeting, we don't really know what the city's plan is with respect to where they intend to put the next elementary school, so that will have influence on where we locate a elementary school. So those are a few of the things that are on the horizon, and I'm not asking you to do anything on that tonight. I would like to share with you, yes, sir.
Before you get into this, just two quick questions. One is how many new students do we have in the system this year, and do you have any way of knowing if some of those were in private schools in Rutherford, Davidson, or Williamson counties coming into this year?
Yeah, we would have a way of knowing. I didn't track that information for tonight. Off the top of my head, I think we picked up roughly 800 students this year. Hang on just a second, Commissioner. Our enrollment, for example, we had looks like a 1.3% growth. We picked up roughly 200 additional elementary or K-5 students, I believe. I don't actually have those numbers, but it was in the ballpark of 800. You know, and that's a good point too. Our growth has fluctuated. There have been years that we picked up 1,900 students, another year 1,600, another 1,400, and a few years as few as 600, 700. So it's it's just a guessing game with regards to what we're going to pick up. Now, with respect to to Stewart's Creek High School, which is going to be part of my recommendation tonight, obviously pursuant to what we did in health ed and pursuant to what the board did. And I know we've got the folks from Eagleville here, and they desperately need an addition too, and I think everyone in this room recognizes that, and I'd like to address that in just a few moments, but so that they'll have a better understanding why it's critical we get Stewart's Creek. Stewart's Creek will offer relief to 4 separate high schools. Those schools are Smyrna High, Laverne High, Blackman High School, and Riverdale High School. It's kind of a midpoint school, and we'll roll kids or cascade kids back towards that school. We know that even though Smyrna and Laverne can accommodate close to 2,000, which they have now, and they also have portables in place, we know with actual numbers by the year 2013 there will be 5,100 kids on that end of the county, which means you essentially have 11, 12, 1,300 students that you've got to put outdoors in portables. Blackman, with 3% growth, and we know these numbers are factual too, will have 2,531 students by that time. Riverdale also will continue to grow. There's no question in my mind that by the year 2013, we will, based on figures, these aren't estimates, these are actual numbers, we'll be using approximately 100 portables between those 4 schools. Laverne will be in really dire straits. I believe Laverne will have, and you've got that in your packet, I think Laverne will have 33 portables on their site. Now, that's not manageable under normal circumstances, but in particular, it's not manageable because Laverne was built in 1987, as was Smyrna, and we've done 3 separate additions at those schools, each time adding 400 seats to bring them to where they hold 2,000 kids. Part of the dilemma they're faced with, each addition basically encroached into the parking lot or went into areas that wasn't intended for construction. So every portable we bring into Laverne takes up parking space. There's absolutely no way that they'll be able to adequately accommodate car drivers. And I do think they'll have roughly 700 kids in portable. Now, all that said, I think everyone in here understands that. I've gone over those numbers with you before. And I don't think I need to make my case for Stewart's Creek. And I certainly anticipate and hope that you'll support that tonight. Now, all the figures that I discussed are in one of the packets here. And before I tear off in a different direction, if you've got any questions as to why we need Stewart's Creek so desperately, I'd take those now. Otherwise, I want to move somewhere else. Okay, now, with respect to Eagleville, Eagleville needs an addition. I don't think there's any question about that. Last year in Health Ed, there was a discussion to basically for it to piggyback Stewart's Creek and to approve it as part of this year's borrowing. The dilemma that we're faced with is that we don't have adequate time to open Eagleville in 2012, which is in part the reason the board pushed it back to 2013. I do also think that the board was concerned with the financing of the project, and they knew how important Stewart's Creek was. Now, all that said, when we had projected Stewart's Creek to come in at $50 million, we hope Stewart Creek comes in below that. Now, the numbers, and we also have discussed the school system through fund balance to offset any kind of operating costs, therefore probably eliminating any kind of tax increase. Now, I know that's important to you folks. And I know another thing that's important. Commissioner Jordan, the point he was making last week was, are we sure that Laverne will always be a high school? Eagleville, pardon me. That Eagleville will always be a high school. And that's a valid question. I want to make 2 points in conjunction with that. One, I'd remind you of the history of schools in Rutherford County. The first schools, high schools built since my tenure, back in 1973, we opened Oakland and Riverdale. 14 or 15 years past, we opened Laverne and Smyrna. 9 or 10 years past, we opened Blackman, I believe in 97, maybe 98. 5 or 6 years past, we opened Siegel in 2003, and it looks like it will be 2013 before Stewart's Creek opens. Now, which lends one to believe that it will likely be 2020, 2021, 22 before Rockville High School opens. Now, which certainly makes a good case for Eagleville remaining a K-12 school and remaining a high school. Now, in discussions at the board level, we've never taken an official position, but I've never heard any board member indicate that they wanted to abandon the K-12 setup at Eagleville. I think that they think it's a good setup, and they prefer to leave it as is. That said, it brings me to the next point. What I'd like to do is kind of follow our normal protocol with respect to school construction. I'd like to forge ahead and get Stewart's Creek done, and I think we've made a good case for building Stewart's Creek. And what I'd like to do is bring back next month to Health Ed the design of Eagleville School. Now, 2 or 3 things come to mind. We can't open Eagleville in 2012 anyway, and the reason is it takes, and you've got this in your packet, it will take roughly 120 days or 4 months to design it. Once the design's done, we'd go out for bid. That takes another 45 days, and the construction will probably take a good 9 months. Now, what I can see happening is that if we come back to Health Ed and appropriate money for the design, which we think we can afford to do with money that we didn't use for the 2 middle schools, at the same time, the commission would have approved Stewart's Creek. Stewart's Creek's design will be wrapped up in approximately 75 more days. We would go out for bid on Stewart's Creek for about 41, 45 days, and the bid would be back in by 7/20. Now, it's our hope that just like the 2 middle schools, that bid's going to come in substantially lower than at $49 or $50 million. That's part of the reason we think it's critical to do now. It's the best time to build. People are needing work. Much the materials are lower. We think we'll come in substantially lower than that. That's our hope. But we certainly don't want to underestimate what the cost is. If it comes in at, say, 44, 43, 45 million, we should be wrapping up the Eagleville design in just the right time to go back out for bid on the Eagleville project, presuming you guys, presuming one, that it comes in at the right price, and secondly, you're interested in doing that. And we could actually, if all the pieces to the puzzle come together, which I certainly hope they do, and even think they will, we could start construction on the Eagleville project somewhere in November and have it ready by the start of the second semester of 2012, January of 2013, which would be 6 months ahead of what the board passed in the 5-year plan, but 4 or 5 months behind what the good folks at Eagleville would like to have. But I think that's a possibility. Ms. Nolan and Mayor Burgess could speak to the funding better than I could, but I hope you would consider that, and I think that gives us a viable option with respect to how we can do both projects.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Salmon.
Mr. Gill, can I ask you a question on, you've got Phase 1 in Eagleville High and you got Phase 2. Can you tell me the differences there? You've got I guess over here in the far right-hand column, you've got an estimate of what those additions would be, but in fact, if what you've just said, then it's not, you don't actually have a design yet for Eagleville.
We don't. We've got a schematic, but the difference in the two is Phase 1 has, I think, 12 to 14 classrooms. They don't have an auditorium, a stage to do any kind of theater arts performances, band performances. We would that would be part of the project. Enlarge, knock the walls out in a large cafeteria, right, Mr. Clardy? Those are some of the things. And the second phase would be simply additional classrooms. I think 12 more. I think total we'd had roughly 24 classrooms. Now, one of the things I know Commissioner Jordan was concerned about, and I want to say I know he got beat up over this a little bit, which I hated because he's been a real advocate for the schools and always supported us, and I'm extremely grateful for what he's done. If we build that, if we do the addition, I know the concern is, well, if someday that the board way out in the future decides, well, we're going to do away with the high school, I don't think there's any wasted money, because they're going to always utilize a little larger cafeteria. They're always going to need a stage, and the only thing that might require a little modification might be some of the science labs. May have to do a little work there to kind of reconfigure them to make them classrooms. So ultimately, every penny you put into that could be used at any grade, K-5, K-8, K-12.
So in your 5-year plan that we was looking at right here, you've got it down anyway for Eagleville for October design. That's when you was planning on coming back through with that anyway. And then, so that's for phase 1 though. And then are you talking about then with this other, that you're talking about bringing it through Health and Ed, still staying on schedule here or putting phase 2 with that as well?
Right now, we don't want to pursue phase 2 at all. We want to pursue the design of phase 1. Obviously, that'll get it in, if it's passed in March, then we can immediately proceed. That shoves it well in advance of that October date and lets us open it up sometime in January of 2013 instead of August of 2013.
Is it more beneficial to us to incorporate, though, in the design on phase 2 and 1 at one time?
I don't think so. Would it be, Mr. Clardy? Yeah.
Thank you.
So that would be my recommendation, that you approved pursuing Stewart's Creek High School, and that you allow us to come back next month to Health Ed and start the design on Eagleville addition.
Would even if the design doesn't matter on either one, what about the construction cost? I see you're estimating right now roughly $8 million to $8,100,000 on both phases at Eagleville, but would you get a better bid on construction if you incorporated the whole thing together?
Mr. Clardy?
Mr. Clardy, you need to use your microphone, please.
You would possibly get a better bid, but it's still going to cost more money because of the added square footage. I mean, you might save money now by doing it, although the cost added together will be more than the 5.3, of course.
There's, I believe, roughly 400 students at Eagleville in the high school right now.
I think 372 I looked the other day.
Okay. When this phase 2 is completed, according to the schedule later on, or you're not even thinking, or let's say, how many do you think when phase 1 is completed are going to be there in the high school?
Pardon me?
How many do you think will be at Eagleville High School when phase 1 is completed, and then a projection what you would think when?
They're growing. They're growing every year a little bit. I don't know that they'd have a lot above that. They're picking up probably. Ms. Holton probably could tell us better than me, but maybe 10 or 15 additional high schools every year.
Commissioner Jernigan?
The way I'm looking at this myself, how many double wides we got out there? About 16?
At Eagleville?
Yeah.
Well, we got 12 or 14 portables? 14 classrooms. We have 144 in the entire district.
I don't see why, when we're going through with this, that we just don't go on and get design for phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time. And then you'll have a figure what we know phase 1 and 2 is going to cost.
Well, I think it makes sense to do that. I guess my answer would be, we realize it's difficult to fund things down here, but it makes sense to do both phases at the same time.
I realize it is, but to do the engineering, I don't think that's the cost that we're going to pay there to get this done both at the same time. I think it'd be beneficial. And then we're going to have an idea what both phases is going to be, what we're going to be looking at here. If we don't, we're going to settle on one, then come back and be looking on the other. My recommendation would like to be that we look at design on phase 1 and 2 both. I mean, we got a school out there at Eagleville. People out there pay taxes like everybody else. And I think we need to look at it.
I agree.
So that's what I'm gonna be asking on my part.
Commissioner Jordan.
Well, I kind of got beat up by some stuff in the paper that I didn't necessarily intend to come out that way. All I was asking for in the Health and Ed Committee, which Director Gills mentioned, was to have a commitment from the school board where we're going, what is the long-term plan. But I'm going to agree with Commissioner Jernigan. I don't see a problem with getting it all designed at once, and I feel sure Mr. Clardy could get that bid broken up, you know, a combination bid, and then we could decide at the time we're awarding the bid if we can afford to get Section 1 and 2 at the same time or not. We're going to design it all eventually anyway, and if we're going to do this, at least look at keep our options open. And if it only costs another $1 million to do phase 2 at that time, or something in that range, then we could then we at least have that option. Mr. Clardy, is not possible to at least take a bid on a 1 and 2 combined, or be able to separate them? Something kind of like we talked about on the stadiums at Eagleville. I mean at Laverne and Smyrna just a few weeks ago.
Sure, we could just add phase 2 as an alternate, and then we'd have the option at that time if we wanted to build it or not to pick it.
Well, what I think we may be saying the same thing, but if we get the design on phase 1 and 2, it's not going to hurt us to get the bid. When you let the bids out, like if you just want to do phase 1, I think that's Will's saying. But if we got the bid for both of them, well, we could see what kind of cost savings you might be if you went on. You can be looking at that. And then if you don't think you can afford that, then you can drop back to 1. But if you come out with them bids and it says, hey, you're going to save, I'll just use any figure, if you're going to save $2 million if you go ahead now, you may look at that.
Yes, sir, that's basically what I said.
Okay, I thought that's what you're saying, but I want to make sure that's what I was understanding.
Director Gill, Commissioner Jordan, Chairman of the Health and Education Committee, had asked to be on our agenda and speak to this issue. So if I could ask him to speak at this time, you may be coming back to the podium. Commissioner Jordan. Speaking in your capacity as chairman of that committee.
Ms. Ely, how are you? Nice to see you.
I am fine.
And Budget Committee. The school board asked us, made a request of us in 2010 to go ahead and look at and vote on, which we did. It was 7-0, to approve the phase 1. Phase 2 has never come before us, and they made no request of that as yet. And since we passed it under that understanding, according to the county attorney that the mayor and I checked with, I'm duty bound to report that to you, which I just did. Now, the one thing we know absolutely for certain, and I'm going to repeat a couple of things that Mr. Gill did such a great job in presenting here, is that there is no question in my mind how desperately, if that maybe not be the correct word, but I'm going to use it, how desperately this is needed, and for a whole variety of reasons at Eagleville High School. And the project was not discussed at the last Health Ed meeting in January because, as far as we were concerned, we were through with our portion of what we had to do on phase 1. And I might tell, and I'm sorry that I'm not facing, this is an awkward room, as we all know, and it's awkward on you all sitting up here as well. I'm well aware of that. I'm sorry I'm not facing these folks back here, but certainly they can listen. I've been on Health and Ed now 4.5 years and honored to chair the committee for 1.5 years. And during that length of time, no one has ever mentioned to me anything about closing Eagleville or changing the grade structure or anything. It has never come up. And you would think with the chairman of the Health and Ed Committee, or at least a member of the committee when Dr. Bullen was chairman for so many years, that it would have at least been mentioned to me. It has never been mentioned. If it is mentioned, I'll write a letter to the editor and everyone will know. So I don't think that this is anything that's being considered. Now, after I finish here in just a minute or two, obviously we're going to do, and I'm going to do, exactly what the Budget Committee does, and we'll certainly follow whatever your vote is. I think the director's comments were very, very good, and it's going to take a site plan request, and if it's Phase 1 or Phase 1 and 2, either way, that'll be fine. I'll present it to the Health and Ed Committee. You all are members of this committee and other committees, and I can only promise what I will do. I will vote for this, and I will bring it before my committee, and we will. I would like to get this done as soon as possible. Now, as Mayor Webb said to me one time, the mayor of Laverne, I will be glad to answer any questions if they're not too hard.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you.
And if there are no objections from any member of this committee, the commissioner who represents that district has requested to speak, and I will offer her that courtesy. Commissioner Jones.
Just wanted to make sure there wasn't any objections before I walked up here. Thank you, Commissioner Ely, and fellow commissioners on the Budget Committee. I appreciate this opportunity to be able to stand up here and speak to you. As you know, I do happen to teach out at Eagleville School, but it is also near and dear to my heart because I attended Eagleville High School through my high school years. And I was awarded opportunities at Eagleville High School that I would not have received at one of the larger high schools. I don't know if you can see me from standing there behind this podium. I'm not very athletic, but I did get to participate on the volleyball team for 4 years. And as a sophomore in high school, we were state runner-ups. And that was an opportunity that I was allowed to have because I was at Eagleville High School. They excel in everything they do. As you can tell, Eagleville does nothing small. We do it big. So I would ask for you just to remember that. Students all through the county get opportunities at Eagleville School that they would not have at some of the other high schools. Not every student is made for a larger high school. They can excel at Eagleville. We have a policy at Eagleville School that there is no failures allowed. You have to do your work. You have to turn it in. If not, Ms. Holton will be calling your mother or your father. You will be staying after school. You will be doing your work during lunch. And it's just an opportunity that we have at Eagleville School that I feel like some of the other high schools, they don't. So it's a place where, for those students who might not excel at that larger high school, that they can have that opportunity. Really quick, a couple of facts. We do have 14 classrooms out in the portables. And I want to remind you that Phase 1 of this project would not be giving us anything that none of the other high schools or middle schools, by the way, have here in the county. And it would simply be getting all of our teachers that are in portables now out of those portables and into the classroom, into the building itself. We are the only middle school or high school in the county without an auditorium at the time. And so that would give us that opportunity for band, chorus, theater students to be able to perform actually on a stage. It would also give our band teacher the opportunity to be able to conduct her classes in a better quality classroom than the one that they have, and we hopefully would not have math classrooms right next to the band. I'm sure that they can probably count very well by just counting the beats that are done on the drum in first period. So just remember that this project isn't asking for above and beyond what anybody else in the county has. We're just asking for our students what all the other students in the county have. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Jones, are you asking us to approve funding for Phase 1 of Eagleville High School tonight? It sounds like that's somewhat contradictory to what Mr. Gill said. He's suggesting the school can't be opened by the next school year, and it sounds like he's suggesting we delay 1 year. Are you recommending something different than Mr. Gill?
Well, I did not even come to this meeting with that in my mind as an option, so that was the first time that I was presented with that when Mr. Gill presented it. To me, it does make sense that if we can't open it, then we might need to wait till next month to vote on that. But I am asking for your support at whenever you do decide to vote on it.
I think there's
and if that is tonight, then I would.
I think there's a lot of commissioners who are sympathetic to the project. We're just trying to get the timing right. Your comments suggest that maybe I'm reading into them that we should vote yes tonight, but I felt like I heard Mr. Gill say that he'd like to go back to Health and Education next month, requesting money for the design and not asking for the full $5.3 million. I'm just trying to get clarification on what he's asking for.
I think that whatever you decide, what I'm asking for is your support when you decide to vote on it, is what I'm asking for.
Can I direct that question to Mr. Gill? I just
Absolutely.
want clarification. Are you indeed suggesting that we not approve funding tonight, or are you asking us to do that tonight?
Well, previous conversations would suggest that we may not be able to fund it tonight without a tax increase. However, regardless of whether you approve it tonight or next month or the month after, two or three things have got to take place. One, you've got to have a design, which we currently don't have. Secondly, we have to know what the high school is going to cost, which again, I anticipated coming in lower than 49, hopefully to the point where Eagleville is immediately approved for construction. So my recommendation tonight is that we take Eagleville back to Health Ed, that Health Ed appropriate money that the school board will provide for up to $250,000 for the design, and that during the design process, we should be completed with the bid process for Stewart Creek, which would tell us specifically what it costs, and by the time that design at Eagleville is done, we could forge ahead with the addition to Eagleville. But I'm not recommending, no, that you necessarily approve Eagleville's construction tonight. I'm recommending that you go back to Health Ed and provide funding for the design.
Well, the reason why I asked that is it seems like the amendment is calling for $5.3 million to be approved tonight. It sounds like we could get your project started with money for the design, hold off. And then deal with the remaining amount in just a few months.
Right. Well, let me say this. First of all, I don't want to be the bad guy here. I can only tell you that we've got to get started with Stewart's Creek, and I can tell you that if I had the authority and had the money, I'd do phase 1 and 2 at Eagleville starting tomorrow. I'd start a new elementary on that other end of the county. I'd do a couple other additions at Siegel and other places that need it. I don't have that authority or the autonomy to do that. What I'm suggesting is that we're all about compromise. I've learned that over the 8 years I've been down here, trying to find ways to see this through. And I see, and I'm trying to help the mayor out and the county commission and the school board at the same time, I see our best opportunity to get Eagleville done, to go back with the design, go out for bid, find out what the bid is, and that really gives you the facts with respect to what you're going to have to borrow in September. I believe that's when we would borrow, August or September, Lisa? And that way, I think you know specifically what your needs were. So, everybody's gotten a hand up here but me, and I got my back to this big crowd. But I, too, am for Eagleville to get this addition, no question. They need it. They're desperate for it. So
Gentlemen,
that's my position.
We have heard the suggestion from Director Gill. What is the will of the committee?
Madam Chairman,
Commissioner Sandlin.
I'd like to make a motion that we send it back to Health and Ed, and for Health and Ed to come to us with a design phase here within the next couple months or whatever, when y'all go back with it, and give us a price tag for that so we can deal with it here on the Budget Committee. And I'll just leave that motion, and I have another comment.
Is that for phase 1 and phase 2 on the design?
I'm going to send it back to Health and Ed, and they can come back and tell us for phase 1 and phase 2, or just phase 1. We'll let them work it out and send it back to us. to get funded.
And just ask another point of...
Gentlemen, excuse me, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion's sakes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send it back to Health and Ed to get the design.
I just want to ask one more clarification.
Okay.
This would not delay the school by an academic year.
Repeat your question.
I'm sorry, if we don't approve the $5.3 million tonight, if we instead get started immediately on the design, approving funding for the design through Health and Education, and that comes through here next month, that doesn't delay the school construction by an academic year. It might
it does
not. It might delay it by a few months, but it wouldn't put it off by an entire academic year.
I think there's a distinct possibility it would happen. You'd have your design, it would go out for bid, and we start construction in November of this year, and we would open somewhere around the second semester of the following year, of 2013. In other words, 8 months in advance of where we thought we were, so it does not delay it a full year, no.
I mean,
and I think it's important also to understand that even if we appropriated money at the full commission, what is it, next week, we still would not have the project complete in time to start next year. So it makes, to me, I think it'd be a sage move to go forward with the design, find out what it's going to cost, and then you know where you are, and we essentially are only a few months behind where we would be anyway. Makes sense?
And again, that wouldn't delay it opening on September the 1st of a particular academic year.
Yeah, it would be, and we've done this has happened before. It would open, in other words, they would move inside probably closer to the second semester in lieu of the first semester.
Of 12?
Sir?
Of 2012?
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, in December of 2012 or January of 2013. Originally, as part of the board's 5-year plan, they were scheduled to open in August of 2013. So we would open in advance of that, if all the chips fall in place.
Gentlemen, any further discussion? Commissioner Jernigan?
I just don't, there's 21 commissioners, not 7, but 7 of them here. My thinking would be if we don't go back and get the design on phase 1 and 2 on Eagleville, where we know exactly what we're talking about, I don't think 21 commissioners is going to be listening to you till you know exactly what you're talking about and what it's going to cost you. And that's what my concern is on that part. I mean, I want to get it done, but I think we need to go back and Health and Ed and send it back through and come up with the money on getting the design on it where we know what it will cost and go from there.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, a year ago, these Stewart's Creek and Eagleville were pretty much on the same timetable, we thought, at that time, looking from there forward. But in the last year, they've changed paces because we appropriated money 3 or 4 months ago to have the design done on Stewart's Creek, and we have done that. So we've got harder numbers on what the amount would be. We haven't done that on Eagleville at this point in time. In the past, we've always had the design done before we went and borrowed the money, so we would have an idea of how much to borrow. And that's why some of the conversations I've had this week with Eagleville residents have called me and said, you need to vote for the funding tonight. I don't see how we can vote for the funding tonight because we don't have that information in front of us. All we've got is a rough mock-up of what it'll be and rough estimates. We've got to get the design done before we can take that next step. These two projects lost track of one another sometime last fall. And it's hard to put, and I don't see how we can put them back together at this time. I like the idea of getting the design done. Also, the Health and Ed Committee has been in election since last February. We've got several new members on not only Health and Ed, but on the full commission, and some of those members haven't seen this at all. And for us to take this on to the commission without them seeing that, I would feel more comfortable if they get a chance to vote on it. I don't have any doubt it'll pass. In my mind, I'm on Health and Ed. Don't have any doubt in my mind. But it just needs to go through the correct process. And I hate for anybody to get upset or the feelings hurt tonight if we don't approve $5.3 million, but I don't see how we can tonight without all the information in front of us.
Any further discussion?
Well,
Commissioner P.?
The reason I second that, I wanted to bring that discussion out. You know, as the director sat here and told us, you know, we don't have the design on this, and that's, you know, we're taxed with taking care of our county's money. And, you know, to me, it's not being responsible if we just go out and say, hey, we're going to build this, but we really don't know how much it costs. I mean, it's just like you putting an addition onto your house or buying a new home. Yeah, you go sign a contract, you're going to buy it, but you don't know how much that house is going to cost you. You know, a lot of us, sometimes it's out of your budget range. And that's all we're trying to do is find out what this costs. And having said that, I've got a question either for the mayor or for Lisa is, with the approval of the Stewart's Creek, assuming those numbers are, let's say, 50 million and 5.3 for Eagleville, what's it going to do as far as the county's tax rates? Are we going to be able to absorb that without a tax rate or increase, or what's it going to cost us? What is the bottom line? And I'm not asking about the other projects right now, just on those two.
That was not one of the options. Are you ready to discuss this?
Yeah, we've got this motion and second on the floor. Can we discuss that?
Well, that's a question, that's part of the discussion of this motion. I mean, in my opinion,
I've provided you this document. It's headed before refundings and after refundings. The first page just shows you the years that we, in total, between the two refundings, we saved $9.7 million in debt service payments, and we structured that to be within the next 4 years. Page 2 is the estimate of revenue. And page 3 begins the discussions. So when you just asked what you said, I was trying to come up with various scenarios, and the question being, can we afford this without a property tax increase? What's going to happen? So in this first scenario, you know that we have committed, we the county have committed on the Joe B. Jackson Road. And the estimate right now is $4 million. So that we have not borrowed anything for. So that's still, we've got to fund. And the estimate of the high school being $50 million. So this first pro forma shows borrowing half the first year and half the second year. The columns to look at are the ones with the arrows to show you, based on the estimate of revenue, we would be using $3 million of the fund balance over the next 3 years. Just those two projects, borrowing half within 2 years. But assuming a 65% fund balance requirement, we still are within our policy. So the first thing I tried to answer was the high school and the roads being that you've already committed to that. All right, if you go to page 4, this was everything, because while these folks here are here for the schools are not the only thing that's on your plate. We've already talked about the road of Joe B. Jackson. Later on, there's design of Epps Mill. There is discussion on the law enforcement at the Sheriff's Department and some remediation. So this on page 4 shows what if we did, again, half the schools, and we include the law enforcement building of about $8 million and Eagleville $5.3 million in the first year. Well, what does that do to us? Well, it then creates problems. We be using an estimate draw of $4.5 million over the next 2 years, which creates a potential problem not for fiscal year 11-12, but 12-13. And a real problem the next year. So then you said, well, we can't do everything all at once. So what's the effect? Go to page 5. What's the effect then if we do the high school split, the road split, the law enforcement building, and Eagleville into the next year? In this estimate that you would be using $4.1 million of fund balance in the next 2 years. I show a possible under requirement of $31,000 with this. I would say hopefully we've got conservative numbers, so we'll just call that even. That you would have a problem in the 13-14 year. That you'd be under your requirement. Either revenues have to improve a whole lot better than what I have estimated. If not, then there would be a potential for, looks like about 4 cents right there in that year.
And which year is that again?
13-14.
So that's taken $8 million for the sheriff's department. Run down through those with the total dollars.
It's right, if you look under, right here.
And then 5.3 with Eagleville?
I put it right there.
Okay. So that's dependent on these coming in at those.
At those times. It shows you what kind of a difference happens when you.
No, that's what I'm talking about, coming in at those bids.
Oh, coming
So
at
if they
those
come
bids.
in
Exactly.
under that, but if our bar in, that's where we're going to make up some difference if possible.
True.
Yeah.
True. For example, if the high school doesn't come in less than,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that gives you some flexibility.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question about your projection on number 6, page 6?
Page 6.
Page 6 has the law enforcement, the $8 million law enforcement center in the being funded in the second year.
Yes.
There's still a shortfall.
There's still a shortfall.
But what if you, swap that out for the $5.3 million Eagleville project?
Then-
You're saving $2.7 million.
Right.
Would you no longer have a
Right.
shortfall?
So then, you know, if you didn't do the law enforcement building and it's 5.3 less, then that could work.
But that also assumes the $5.3 million is being borrowed next year, not now.
Yes, that would assume it's a year away.
What if it were borrowed this year? Same amount, just 1 year earlier.
Same amount 1 year earlier, so do it in the, say it again. What
Your
you want.
projections on page 6,
Okay.
I'm just sort of hypothetically suggesting you swap out the $8 million law enforcement center and insert the $5.3 million Eagleville project.
Right here.
You're saying then it wouldn't, yes, on page 6, would not require a tax increase, but that scenario has the Eagleville project being funded next year.
Yes.
Not tonight, not this
Right.
year. What would happen if we funded it this year?
This year.
Instead of waiting 1 year? It sounds like we could, if we wait 1 year, we can do it without a tax increase based on your projections. But what if we expedited it forward by 1 year?
That's why I said that's the one I didn't run.
It would be close. It looks close.
It'd be close. I mean, you would be funding, you would be, where this $8 million is out for a year, you're funding it 1 year earlier. So it would add, say,
And that also means
400,000, about 400,000 more in debt service in this first year. I mean, using about $80,000 to fund $1 million of debt. That's where I was going. 8.5.
Madam Chair, I think, you know, the financials are great, but I think we put the cart before the horse because the motion we have is whether to send it back to Health and Ed and let them examine design for, if at all, or for Phase 1 or for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Is that not where we stand?
I agree. I was going to clarify Commissioner Sandlin's motion, but Commissioner P., I think this is helpful. This was helpful to Commissioner P. And the Health and Education Committee will be able to use this information because according to your motion, Commissioner Sandlin, this is something that you wanted the Health and Ed to decide and send to budget then. Is that correct? So this information could be used by the Health and Education Committee in making that decision.
The reason I ask this is because I'd like to see this project done as soon as possible, but I want to be able to afford to do it without putting a tax increase out there if possible. If not possible, I want to know that too. But I'd like to see this project. I don't think there's anybody sitting up here that's not in favor of helping you folks out at Eagleville get your school. And I'll be proud to stand up and vote with them to get this and make it possible. But I do want to know the consequences of our vote there. And like I said, finding that out for me will help me make up my mind to go ahead and get it done as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nolan. Ms. Short, would you please read the motion as stated for us one more time, please?
The motion is to send the Eagleville High School back to the Health and Education Committee, where it will be determined whether or not the design will be done for Phase 1 or Phase 2 or both.
Okay, so this will be determined by the Health and Ed Committee. Are we clear, gentlemen? Okay. Any further discussion? Commissioner Schaefer.
It's just one thing I have to bring up. I think it's tied right in with this, but it deals with the whole process. And needless to say, we've all gotten, even I live almost in Percy Priest Lake, where my home is, and I've gotten inundated with phone calls, emails, and a couple letters, and that's what I want to bring up. I think I want to commend the Eagleville School on the teachers there for having students write letters, because I have found out in this county, and I'm sure it's not only this, that even up into high school, some of our students have never written a letter. But I'm not going to read the letter, but I do want to congratulate this person. She's a 5th grader, and her name is Heather Whitaker, and she wrote a letter, and not only did she promote her cause, but she put in facts to back it up why it should be done. And I think it was a very well-written letter, and not only that, it was a 5th grader, and I can read it. In fact, I can just about read it without my glasses on, so I did want to bring that
up. Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion relative to the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, if you will look at item 15 on our agenda. It is the recommendation from the Health and Education Committee authorizing funding for the construction of Stewart's Creek High School and to include the Smyrna Laverne Bleacher Project in the bid process as an alternate bid. I am going to read the motion as it came from Health and Education
Madam Chairman,
Committee.
You want to wait just a few minutes? I don't.
Oh, are we all leaving now?
Mr. Gill, I don't know if, do you know if we're going to school tomorrow? No school tomorrow. All right. Well, I just want to say, make sure y'all be careful driving back because there's probably slick spots and stuff.
Well, since there's no school tomorrow, they ought to stay and be with us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Do y'all want to take a break or keep going? You'll keep going? Do y'all want to take a break or keep going? They said keep going. Keep going. Yeah. Keep going. Gentlemen, I think they're exiting rather quietly. Okay. The motion from Health and Education Committee, Commissioner Will Jordan moved, seconded by Commissioner Phillips, to proceed with Stewart's Creek High School project at a cost of $49,976,500. Commissioner Phillips moved to amend the original motion, seconded by Commissioner Allen, to include the Smyrna Laverne Bleacher Project in the bid process as an alternate bid This amendment passed unanimously by roll call vote, and the original motion passed unanimously by roll call vote. Chair will entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved, Madam Chairman. Since Stewart's Creek is in my area, I'd certainly appreciate it.
I'll second it and clarify that the part where the bleachers has to come back through Health and Ed and the committee before that is had the option be exercised on, because some of us aren't necessarily in favor of building the bleachers before the Eagleville addition or anything else. But there is, that option is going to be bid and it will come back through the committee process.
So that alternate bid has to come back?
Has to come back through Health and Ed.
Through your committee,
Yeah.
okay? Mrs. Nolan?
Just clarification too, that you are recommending funding this with a future bond issue, not to exceed
$49 million.
Okay. Commissioner Sandlin, is that your motion?
Yes, yes.
Any further discussion?
Just, well, with what the commissioner said right there, so we're dropping that alternate bid, and so we're just doing this.
Now, I would just clarify, the alternate bid will have to come back through Health and Ed before we act upon the bleachers.
Okay.
I mean, if it comes in for pennies on the dollar, then, you know, it might be looked at, but it will have a chance to be looked at again by the committees before we move forward with the bleachers.
Everybody clear on that motion? Are we ready to vote?
Madam Chairman, I'm fine with the motion and everything, but I just got to say one thing. I've been to some of those football games in the northern end of the county, and I just want to go on the record as saying it is a safety factor when you have students and fans from one team sitting on the same right in close proximity to those of another team, and things get heated. If you live in Murfreesboro, you don't have to worry about that because you've got bleachers, adequate bleachers on both sides, even when you get the quite a few people there. And I just want to bring it up. The main thing to me on this is the safety aspect of it.
We still have the opportunity to make the decision at that time. The option's still there.
Commissioner Bond, did you? Oh, okay. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, turn please to Section 7 in your notebooks. We have general debt service fund budget amendments. In fact, we have two of those. Mrs. Nolan, Section 7. The first one is the capital outlay.
The first one, this is now putting on our books the budget amendment for the refundings. The first one is refunding the $10 million note that we did pay 400 of that. We had already appropriated money to pay 400 of that down and rolled the 9.6 million. The rate on that, on the first 10 was 2.7, and we replaced that with a rate of 1.65. That's the first one. We do the second one too. The second one is the county refunded $45,475,000 of outstanding bonded debt. The prior debt has been replaced with $41,875,000 of refunded debt. The true interest cost of this refunded debt is 2.0374. The result of this refunding provides the county with $4,160,000 of savings for debt service. Kind of already gone through that with all the refunding, with all the savings.
A few members of our committee are a little distracted right now.
Okay.
But we do need a motion and a second, gentlemen. Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
I'll second the motion also.
And second from Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin? Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, Section 8 in your notebooks. Mrs. Boland. Mrs. Boland, before you begin, make sure that I am clear. I know this is concerning maintaining and preserving our permanent records. You really do not need any action from us tonight. You're presenting this for information.
Information only,
Good.
yes.
Thank you.
And apparently, it's not exciting enough for everyone to have stayed for
I know.
the records
I know.
of the courts. Yes, no, this is information only. TCA Code 107-408 is a Records Commission code. It provides for funding, a way to finance records management, and it was just amended in 2009 and 2010 to allow the clerks of court to actually charge a fee to maintain that service. So this $5 fee will be on every initial filing in the clerks of court offices. It won't be on any orders after the initial filing, just that initial filing. And that will allow us to do scanning and microfilming projects to secure our permanent records.
And I know you did present this to...
We did. We presented it to the steering committee.
Steering committee.
And it was unanimously approved at the steering committee. Any questions?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, Section 9. General Capital Projects Fund Budget Amendments. And this is what our finance director alluded to when she did her fund condition report, and some of those items in the cash balances page.
One that is new. This amendment provides funding to begin a project for the jail remediation to repair the building's brick facade. Initially, the funds will be used to pay for engineering and architectural services. We're recommending moving $75,000 of the project manager project that we had set aside in 2006 and have not ever used it. So we thought we had some projects that we could use that funding, and if ever we needed a project manager, we could come back again and request those funds. But we haven't needed it since 2006.
Lisa, where did those funds? Where did those funds originate?
Initially, development tax.
Okay.
It's development tax.
I was wondering if that was some of the taxes that we were picking up from the, I don't know, the people that are going through the court system.
Oh, it's not. No, it's development tax.
Okay,
The second part of the amendment provides funding to continue the project for the expansion of the jail facility to provide additional office space. $78,778 was initially transferred from the general fund to the capital projects fund in August 2008 to pay for consulting services. After the first part was complete, a balance of $8,651 was transferred from the law enforcement addition project to the Smyrna Clerk Building to provide additional funding to complete that project. The Smyrna Clerk Building is now complete, and there is $4,005 available to be transferred back to the law enforcement addition. Then the third part, the ambulance Manchester project is now complete, and there is available funding of $10,882 left in this project. The Kittrell Volunteer Fire Department is complete, however, expenses were $551 over the monies provided. This amendment provides the additional funding from the ambulance project to the Kittrell project, and then the remaining funds left from the ambulance project to be transferred back to the general fund.
Commissioner Schaefer got it down there. I mean, make a motion to approve.
Second.
You are making the motion, Commissioner Sandlin, and seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Mayor Burgess, we're ready for a recommendation to execute a release on the remaining amount of a lien for the recipient of a home grant.
Some of you that were commissioners several years ago remember there were 4 or 5 homeowners through a home grant program that we allowed some of those people to make some improvements to their homes, the indigent, low-income people. This is the second one of these that sort of we've had to do this or been requested to do this. And even though there was no county money involved here, we were you might say, the conduit for all of this to actually happen through the THDA. But in any event now, these people promised, you might say, to stay in these properties for 5 years, and at the end of that 5th year, every year 20% of that lien would be released. This person is down to about the last one plus a little bit of 1 year, but they're in a very difficult position, and they're going to have to sell this property, what's called a short sale through a bank of some sort. So they're asking us just to release the year that's remaining on that 5-year lien, you might say, on this piece of property. Again, we're not giving up any of our money. It's just simply the fact that we're cooperating with this person that's in a difficult financial situation. And THCA is fine with this, and it's the right thing to do it for this particular one person.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner P., seconded by Commissioner Schaefer or Commissioner Jordan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Next, we have a recommendation to approve a revised Epps Mill Road Planning Services proposal with Huddleston Steel. And gentlemen, if you will remember, I think previously it was in the amount of $4,900, and this now is $6,500. Mayor, do you need to add any other details?
That's it. After reconsideration, in hindsight, we would have done it like this before. This includes both sections of the Epps Mill Road, including the smaller piece that runs north from the interstate to Manchester Highway, and we had not included that previous component, and it's important that we get that information there because there's some safety issues there, traffic issues, particularly with the truck school, et cetera, that's over there. Mr. Jernigan may have some things he could add to that, but that's our request.
I'm just going to make a motion to approve Public Works, approve this unanimously tonight.
Commissioner Jernigan?
I'll second.
And seconded by Commissioner P.
Question. Is this still going to Plainview like it did before, which is past Buchanan Estates?
We shortened it just a bit. We're only going up to Buchanan Estates, to sort of offset this total cost a little bit here. We'll still have the alignment that will allow us to go further. But
Okay, the question when you say up to, is that the beginning of Buchanan Estates on Epps Mill, or is it going to take in the 290s and go to the back end of Epps Mill? I mean, back end of Buchanan Estates.
You'd be coming around where that S-curve or whatever you call it past that up there.
Just past the S-curve?
On past, be that last street right there at that subdivision.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Next, we have a recommendation to approve the annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the sanitary landfill with the state of Tennessee. This is an annual adjustment that the County Commission approves, and you will notice at the bottom of your document the present amount is $3,618,951, And notice there is a reduction now, and our total required amount is $3,472,384.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. And gentlemen, I should also remind you that you did have some attached contract documents there also. Mrs. Nolan will discuss with us the possible establishment of an audit committee.
Thank you. Well,
And if you'll keep turning in your notebooks, you should find some notes from her on that.
titled Rutherford County Audit Committee Proposal. Today, Rutherford County does not have an audit committee. It's been recommended that the Board of Commissioners establish an audit committee as a best practice. An audit committee can assist the County Commission by providing independent and objective reviews of the financial reporting process, internal controls, the audit function, compliance with laws and regulations, ethics, and would be responsible for monitoring management's plan to address various risks. According to TCA 9-3-405, there are instances where the comptroller may require that an audit committee be established. Rutherford County is not being forced. In your documents, you will find County Audit's recommendation along with their guidelines in establishing an audit committee, a draft resolution to establish the audit committee, and the duties and responsibilities of the committee. Before the resolution can be approved, it will have to go before the Comptroller's Office to get their approval that it meets all their guidelines. Now, I just kind of like to just go over a few points. Now, this I've presented this to steering, and it will work its way through there. But I wanted to bring y'all on board too. The resolution, or the guidelines, provides for meetings that are both public and private. Now, if you go to page 6 on this document, this takes you to the draft resolution, and it lists 5 reasons why this committee could have non-public meetings. And those items are items deemed not subject to public inspection under TCA 107503 and 107504, and all other matters designated as confidential or privileged, current and pending litigation and pending legal controversies, pending or ongoing audits or audit-related investigations, information protected by federal law, and matters involving the reporting of illegal, improper, wasteful, or fraudulent activities under TCA 9-3-406, where the informant has requested anonymity. The guidelines provide for 2 meetings, one after the field work of the audit is done and complete, and one after the audit has been released. The Comptroller requires that this committee have at least 3 members. I would throw out 5. My suggestion, and this is some of the things that the steering would be working on and your body, that 2 come from the commission, 1 come from the road board, and 1 from the Board of Education, and 1 be a citizen, but that 1 of the 5 be a CPA. Because this board needs to be totally independent and without conflict, there's requirement that members cannot be employed by the county, nor can their spouse or anyone with which they commingle their personal funds. The question I have, and I've provided some information to steering, is how does one view a retired employee? Do they view that as a conflict or not? I've got two differing opinions on that. Both auditors, one from the comptroller, one from CTAS, but I turned all those over to Commissioner Coggin. And then the other thing to be determined is the term, how long the positions should be, 3, 4 years, 2 years.
Lisa, are these paid positions?
I would highly recommend that they be paid positions. I mean, paid members. Per meeting, similar to what y'all do.
I mean, if there are actually CPAs doing audits, that's why I'm wondering, you're talking about getting into some bugs if you're going into a real audit process.
What I was trying to accomplish, Section 4 on page 6 has in it that the committee shall have access to the services of a financial expert, either through a committee member or an outside party engaged by the committee for this purpose. So I had kind of hoped that maybe we could, by ensuring that one of the members is a CPA, then you wouldn't have to provide the expense of a CPA, that you would just have somebody on there, because not everybody is going to have the accounting background, but if you had some member on your board that was, then.
Any other questions to Mrs. Nolan about the establishment of an audit committee? Okay, this was just for information. You did not want us to take any action tonight.
Right, and steering had asked when would I like to see this in place. The proposal, or the first meeting would be after audit field work, and that generally is about September. So it would be nice to have this in place, and also for budgeting purposes to be able to fund compensation for the commissioners and the board members. We could have that in our budget. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have an amendment to increase the award of a 2008 Homeland Security grant, and it's nice to see Mr. Allen here tonight.
Good evening, and
thanks.
congratulations. I'm the last one. We do have a unique situation here. We talked about this, or they talked about this at the public safety meeting. We did not have a contract here, but since then, a contract came for the amount of the amendment to that grant. And I talked to the chair of public safety, and I told him I really need to get this on to budget for the full commission so we can act on it and execute it, because we're very limited on time on when we can get this money spent. Unfortunately, one of our counties within the UASC had to forfeit their 2008 Homeland Security grant because they could not meet the requirements and get it spent. There was about $300 and something thousand. Fortunately for Rutherford County, we were awarded $253,420 of that, and they've made an amendment to our 2008 grant. And what I'm asking is to pass this on to the full commission for the mayor to sign accepting this additional money, and secondary is to put the additional amount into my 790 line of $253,420.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner P., thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin.
We did discuss this pretty well at our public safety meeting, and of course it's a win for us getting the money we didn't expect, and of course where that money is going to, we'd already talked about that.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
And I have a question, and I'm not sure how we'll need to do this. Because of our short time frame, it may be another 3 months before I get the grant, the signed copy back from the state because of their paperwork process. We can't wait 3 months to spend it because the contract runs out. So what I'm asking is once we get those monies moved into our 790, we can go ahead and start our process of spending that $253,420. The contract will be signed by the mayor once it's approved. I just have to wait for that paperwork to come back.
Work with the vendor? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, any other business that needs to come before our committee? May I tell you, thank you, committee members, for adjusting to this change. This was not the most comfortable way to conduct a meeting, and it's much more comfortable in that room 205. But thank you very much, and I appreciate your help. Thanks very much.
Good job.
Commissioner Jordan?
I want to thank the committee too for your understanding of our problems in health and ed. We try to do the best job we can do.
Microphone, please. Microphone.
Can you hear me?
Okay. 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 Anything else that needs to come before our committee? We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. Good night.